This is a quick walk through 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 3 through 8, in regard to its use of the word sanctification, which shows up in verse 3. The same Greek word shows up in verse 7 and in verse 4, so 3, 4, and 7. I'm going to show you how to turn on the interlinear Greek in Logos. If you click on the Aleph Omega button, the button to the right, you want to click inline reverse interlinear, right like that. I recommend just leaving the first two things checked. It normally comes with many more things checked, but they tend to get in the way. When you've done that, it may look like this. If yours isn't set up so that you have a verse out here and each verse on a line, you can click the three circles, choose resource, choose Bible text only, and choose Bible text formatting, chapter verse numbers, and one verse per line. That will set up your text to look like mine. I want to notice that Paul says, "For this is the will of God, even," and underneath the word even is a dot, which lets you know that there's no Greek word that reflects that. The fact that it's in italics in the King James lets you know that was their way of letting you know that they added it, even your sanctification. That, and the word that here has a right pointing arrow. The number 10 just says this is the 10th Greek word. It's related, this English word is related to the 10th Greek word in the verse. Each of the Greek words is numbered. They're numbered in the order they occur in Greek. So it's actually, in Greek, tuto comes before gar, and which comes before estin. So what they've done is they've lined up the Greek with the English, but left the numbers there to let you know the order the Greek occurs in. So in this case, the word that is part of the translation of this Greek word, apekastha, which is the 10th word. The right-facing arrow tells you that you need to look to the right to find that 10th word. And here we find should is also being translated from apekastha, as the right pointing arrow indicates that it's related. So what we have here is an infinitive, apekastha, that is further defining, further explaining what Paul means by sanctification. God's will is your sanctification, that is your set-apartness to God. What do you mean by that, Paul? Well, what I mean is that you should abstain from fornication. So abstaining from fornication explains the kind of set-apartness to God that Paul has in mind. The next that in the passage, in verse 4, has a right-facing arrow and says the number 1, which tells me that I need to move down the line to find the word number 1. Oh, here's another that's connected to an infinitive. If you want to know how I know that it's an infinitive, you can look down at the bottom of my screen. When I move my cursor over the word know, you'll see a little pop-up down there that says you the verb perfect active infinitive, and that will let you know the same thing. Again, if you put your cursor on a stain, you'll see it's from apeko. It's a verb present middle infinitive again. So we both have two infinitives that are explanatory infinitives that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor. This is a further, verse 4 is a further explanation of God's will, that is your sanctification. God wants you to be holy. The first thing I want you to know about that is that being holy as God is holy involves abstaining from fornication. The second thing it involves is knowing how to possess your vessel in a holy and honorable manner, not in the lust of concupiscence or in passionate lusts, as modern versions say, even as the Gentiles which do not know God. And then here's your third that no man go beyond. In this case, they're saying that that is the translation of the Greek article. To be honest, I think that's a little bit misleading. That is just another translation of this infinitive here. So there are three infinitives: the passage, abstain, know, and go beyond. The third aspect of the sanctification that Paul's writing that they need to know about is that God does not want them to go beyond other people's boundaries and take from them what belongs to them, defraud the brother in any matter. Now notice that any here is in italics. The Greek actually says in the matter. Most likely we're talking about sexual defrauding here, because the Lord is the avenger. For God has not called us to uncleanness, but to holiness. Now, isn't it interesting that the King James translated the same Greek word, hagiasmos, holiness here, whereas it translated it sanctification here and sanctification there. So the same Greek word occurs in all three places. The same, therefore, concept is in view. That is, God has not called us to the uncleanness of sexual impurity, but to the cleanness of being set apart to Him. And that set apartness involves abstaining from fornication, learning how to conduct yourself in a way that's holy and God-honoring, and not defrauding your brother.